have insomnia. All these different things are coming out, and what the research shows is, for example, again, this is the beginning of research that people like to jump onto, which is, oh, the avid gamer under PET scans looks like it has the same sort of brain as someone who with pathological gambling. Obviously, people say video gaming is causing people to have brains like pathological gamblers. But we can't say that yet. What we could say is maybe there's some underlying factors that would have led one way or the other way, or they would have switched back and forth, like symptom substitution. But we do know what it does show is there is an issue here. Something even on a biological level that's happening. So we should investigate it further. There's other research showing like white matter starts to deteriorate in avid gamers in some studies. Go, wow. But that's a cross-sectional, one-shot thing. What they didn't do is prospective, saying the youth need to be followed from an early age and see how they compare to other people or what's actually happening. That research hasn't been done adequately at all yet. And so what we could say is it's a factor. It's a major factor. We should be investigating this heavily. As a clinician, this is probably of interest to you, but this is more of the research realm to kind of give us some standing eventually to say, yeah, the video gaming 8 hours a day from age 3 is probably not a good thing, but we already know that. It gets back to understanding from a cultural perspective and a social perspective, when a youth comes in, and if you haven't taken the time to understand from their point of view, you're going to have a therapeutic breakdown, which is saying, yeah, I have lots of friends. And you say, what sort of friends you got? Well, you know, I have one in China and one in Japan and one in Malaysia. Have you ever met them? No. As a clinician, you say, well, they're not real relationships. You've broken the therapeutic concept of understanding the person. And the fact, I will tell you this, those relationships are real in a sense. They are real. They're not as real as a physical kind of reality you might be used to, but people talk to each other, share emotions, thoughts, and I'm sure through email, when you interact with people you don't see, you feel it's real too. And so you have to start to think from the 21st century and what is happening from an empathy and for your own survival as well to understand what this actually means. So I did mention earlier about the biopsychosocial cultural spiritual model. Some of you might just use the biopsychosocial, but I would encourage you to enhance it a bit with cultural spiritual dimensions, because when we use that, it helps us look at many different things that will influence your treatment planning and approach. It's similar to gambling. It's similar to any sort of behavior you're going to tackle this way. So there's many different things that could lead to the etiology of the development of a internet problem, let's call it. So as we said before, biologically, you got learning disorders, temperament issues, you have some sort of like ADD, ADHD, Asperger's disorder, all these sorts of things right there that might predispose you to using the internet in various different behavioral ways to cope with that sort of stuff. And then psychological. Well, the biological things we just talked about that might develop into a full-blown learning disorder, real attention deficit issues, often impact a person. Say, gee, I'm not smart. I don't feel good about myself because everyone calls me stupid and now I'm in a special class and all these sorts of things. And because of that, what am I going to do to feel masterful? Where world can I hide in or go to feel good that I'm not being made fun of, or I can avoid feeling this way? And as you can see, these are common amongst many different conditions. And then we get into, let's say, the social, where the family goes, we do not believe in mental health issues or ADHD or depression. Just pull up your socks and all that sort of stuff. Or we don't talk about emotions here. That's our family culture value. Or we're very, very, very over-inclusive and protective and all these sorts of things. We'll pay for everything so long as you don't make us feel guilty. So that also interacts too, right? And then the culture, which we talked about, which is our society has games all over the place. And there's no warning labels on them like cigarettes, but perhaps in the future say, this video game might be potentially addictive, which we know as clinicians, they are potentially addictive. But there's no warning labels. And as we said before, certain content in games, not even regulated in any particular way, except, yeah, this is for 18 plus. Who enforces that? Nobody. So there's all that. And then there's the spiritual dimension about, it doesn't mean religion necessarily, but that could be a factor about this is an example of a case I think I've told many people about. It's like, let's say someone is born into a very religious family and they happen to be homosexual, and because of that, they get their self-esteem issue problems, the social factor problems, and their cultural things that they're worried they're going to burn in hell. And so they start going into the internet where they can actually explore their sexuality and feel that's a safe place versus the real world. Do they have internet addiction, or what is it we're talking about? The other thing about spirituality is the existential, or their way of feeling. How do they conceptualize all of this? How do they feel about themselves in the world and make sense of everything that's happening to them? If you get into that as well, it's a great way to link with them and start working with all the other factors. So that's why I say, again, the biopsychosocial, cultural, spiritual model, that's still reductionistic in itself, but it's better than the biopsychosocial in my opinion. Let's talk about risk factors now. Basically, they're very similar to what people with addiction potential have, as well as mental health issues, which gets back to what we've seen is learning disorders, temperament issues, other mental health issues, such as ones that affect impulsivity or mood, familial factors such as does this run in the family, whether it's behavioral addictions or other mental health issues, trauma experiences. So some people have asked, is there a difference between youth and adults with the presentations? Well, it's probably common sense. The answer is yes and no. Mostly the fact is, just like other conditions, just like gambling, youth gamblers versus adult gamblers, and let's not forget our senior gamblers, they have very similar kind of dynamics in one way, but because of where they are in their life cycle, things are different. So let's go back to internet and video gaming. The youth often has a family around who's paying for everything, doing everything, sheltering them, and so on, which is a major, major factor, which is why we almost never work with people unless we can drag their family in to be part of the treatment, because we can go around in circles. One major factor is if you work with that youth without remembering it's a systems approach, you'll go nowhere. It's like, I have no reason to change. Why should I change? My parents pay for everything. I'm a loser, so I'm just going to stay in my computer den here, and they'll pay for my cell phone, and they keep putting sandwiches outside my door. Why should I change? That's a major factor in youth. Also, the other thing about youth is because of their biological developmental things with plasticity of the brain and so on, they might be more vulnerable in some ways to media messages and all that sort of adolescent social belonging to certain factors and so on. But this goes online too. It used to be you would join certain cliques, but now it's cliques online. And so youth are very invested in, feeling autonomous, feeling well respected, being liked. And so the internet allows them to do that sort of thing too. That doesn't completely dissolve away when you're an adult, but an adult now might not have an entire other family bailing them out of everything. So the impact might be a little bit more evident when they start getting in trouble with their jobs, losing their jobs, and so on. And this might be more similar to the adult gamblers now that you see already, which is, suddenly there's financial issues, marital issues, all these sorts of things, but because it's where they are in their lives. But then you have the seniors. There's seniors in video games and internet. Yeah, well, yes, just like seniors do gamble too, and as a major target for most industry, because let's put them all on a nice little bus to casino and put them in front of some slot machines while giving them a steak. Let's see what happens. And there you go. But with the internet world, they don't have to bring them over in a bus and give them a steak. They're just right there already. And although seniors this is a stigma and a stereotype. They don't like technology. They just want to use abacuses and stuff. Well, it's not true. A lot of the adults who say, who have other issues like, iPad 1. Oh, iPad 2, I got to buy it right away. Is this a shopping issue? Or is this a technology issue? I don't know. Here, Grandma, take my old one. Oh, number 3 came out. Here, take my old one. Take my old one. Get an email. Here, get on Skype. See your grandkids. They get access to it too, and it's happening more and more. And because they have certain vulnerability factors, similar ones that people who run into gambling problems might have, beware. So Youth is a major target for industry, so is seniors. Video gaming industry is using the same tactics as the gambling industry in terms of trying to hook people in and get money and get rich. So there are differences in that regard, just like with gambling, but it's common sense when you think about it. Please use your common sense.